Hey guys, thanks for tuning in again. Today I wanted to talk about the 10 lessons that I've learned living out of a van for the last month and a half. At the end I have one last bonus tip, so watch to the end and you'll get to see that. But number one, plan ahead, if you can. In Yosemite, the driving conditions were R2, which means we needed chains on our tires. So David had already researched that and known and planned ahead on that, knowing that we were going to be in Yosemite in the winter, and so he had already bought snow chains, the specific snow chains to his tires, and we were able to enter into the park, no hassle, and we were able to drive around just fine. However, if we would not have thought of that, we would have had to pay a very pretty penny at the entrance or not even been able to go into Yosemite. It also applies to picking out where you're going to sleep each night. When you're living out of a van, yes, Walmart is a very good option. However, in California and some other states and other cities, you're actually not allowed to, by city ordinances, to sleep in Walmarts or just overnight sleep in general. So you need to do your research as to where you're going to sleep, whether that's going to be on the side of the road in a Walmart parking lot or somewhere in a national forest. We did our research pretty well on where we'd be able to sleep, but some nights we ended up driving probably 30 minutes to an hour to find out where we were going to sleep, and by the time we got in, it was super late, very dark, we were hungry, and a little irritable and ready to go to bed. So it's a lot easier if you can plan those out. Tip number 2, though, is on the flip side of that, which is you have to be flexible as well. Though it's really great to plan out everything, I don't suggest planning out everything to a T. We ended up hitting a lot of weather in California in our trip there, and so we really had to reroute and tailor our experience to the weather. We didn't want to go spend 3 days in Sequoia National Forest in below freezing negative weather. We weren't looking forward to that and didn't think that'd be much fun, so we decided to be flexible and ended up going to Santa Cruz instead and surfing. So you've got to be flexible and not set in stone, otherwise it's just going to lead to expectations that can't always be met, and it just kind of takes the fun out of things. Plus, it's more of an adventure when you don't know what's going to happen. We had a flat tire, we had to spend probably 2 or 3 days at the shop getting things fixed, and it just adds to it all. It's a lot of fun, and if you come in with a mindset of being flexible and going with the flow, then it's a lot easier. Just living by the seat of your pants is kind of a fun way to go about things, and if you're flexible enough to change the city you're going to go to or the nights that you're going to stay in that area, then it's a lot more fun just because you have the freedom to do it and you're living out of a van, so why not? Also, on flexibility, sometimes you do plan out your camping sites and turns out they're either closed or unavailable or full or whatever it may be. So remember that you've got to be flexible on your camping spots and maybe pick 1 or 2 more in the planning process. It's just good to have a general outline of what you're going to do, what you might encounter, what weather you might hit, that sort of thing. So plan, be flexible. Plan, be flexible. Plan, be flexible. Flexible. 1 and 2. For number 3, step into the van. The fridge is an essential part of the van. At least for our lifestyle, the fridge served as probably one of the most important things we had in here. Because a lot of times we weren't very close to any restaurants or grocery stores or any of that, and even if we were close to restaurants, we aren't people who really eat out a lot. And so since we're trying to keep the budget down, we went to Costco and got big things of everything, and we even have a whole chicken. So we were well fed the whole trip, but we were also able to store everything and make sure that it was safe for eating and not just eat oatmeal and, I don't know, tuna out of cans. So the fridge is something that if you're thinking about investing in, I highly recommend doing it. And this is the 64 quart. It is 65. This is the 65 quart fridge. It's a little bigger than what most people choose, but I think that it is well worth the money and the space that it does take up, because of the purpose that it serves. It also is a great table. So there's that too. Lesson number 4, baby wipes are gonna be your best friend. We do have a solar shower. However, we weren't always in a national forest and we weren't always able to take a shower. Huh?
And it was really cold.
Yeah. Lesson number 5 is we learned that you really didn't need a heater. With the 2 of us and a lot of blankets, we were able to stay warm in below freezing weather. Like, I think we got down to 16 or 20s, in the 16 and 20s, and for us being from Texas, me being from Texas, I like to be pretty warm, so I'm really not gonna wanna hang out outside or do anything outside if it's below 16 degrees. So we found that with just quite a few blankets layered on top, we have 2 good wool blankets and then a really great down blanket. We were able to stay warm and almost sometimes really hot actually in the middle of the night, and we had no problems without a heater. So though it might be a luxury, it is not a necessity if you're going back and forth between whether or not you should get a heater. Lesson number 6. Organization is key. What I mean by that is have a place for everything that is going to be around the van. So if it's your shoes, have a spot for your shoes that your shoes go in every single time you take them off. That way you know where it is and you can find it. We learned that when we were not organized, everything was like a salad bowl and it was just mixed up and you didn't know where anything was, and it just caused a bit of irritation and frustration because everything was everywhere and it was very hard to get to anything and there was no floor space. So when you're living in a small space like this, you've got to make sure that everything is organized and everything has a place. You really just want to have a good system with how you're going to organize and where you're going to put things. So things like binoculars, you're going to want to put at the front of the van where you're going to be most likely to use them. You don't want those at the back of the van where you're never going to get to them. It makes no sense to have additional things that you're just not going to use. This leads to lesson number 7. Less is always more. Less is always more. Let me say it one more time. Less is always more. I brought what I thought to be very few clothes. But if you have noticed through the videos on my channel, I have worn the same thing almost every day. Yeah, pretty much every day. I thought I didn't bring a whole lot of things, but after living in the van, I realized I had too many pairs of clothes and I really could have scaled down on that, as well as some other objects. What is this, you might ask? This is lesson number 8. A window cover. These are very important when you want to sleep and when you want privacy. So these are really neat because they're just homemade, but they have the reflective side when it's hot and this side when it's cold, or when you just want to kind of, this matches the color of the van. So when you just want to be a little more stealthy, you can put these up and it just looks like it's blacked out inside the van. It doesn't look like you're trying to live out of your van like this. So yeah, this creates basically a cave in your van when you can black out everything, and it just gives you privacy when you want to eat and you've parked on the side of the road and you still have lights on so that not everybody can just look into what you're doing as they drive by. Lesson number 9 is that coastal California is a lot trickier. Is a lot trickier than you think to van camp at. A lot of this land in here that's BLM land, and even the Walmarts and things like that we've already talked about, you're not actually allowed to sleep in legally. A lot of people do, but you're not supposed to. So that has happened because a lot of people have not taken care of the land and they've had to shut those things down. So if you are going to California, I know this lesson is specific to California and what we've just done, but keep in mind that it is a little bit more tricky than some of the other places in California. Morro Bay is a great place to stay, and they really do welcome vans. Even though it's not technically legal, they're not going to give you any fuss about it. However, Santa Cruz, they're pretty strict when it comes to overnight camping, unless you're a little bit south or sometimes in the neighborhoods. So that's something you're going to have to feel out for yourself and is not necessarily legal. Lesson 10. Have a full toolkit of tools. Amongst our trip, we had to change a flat tire, we changed the ignition coil and the starter, and there was one other thing we fixed. Yes, the electrical wiring. So, good news is we have a wonderful mechanic on board, David Bobbitt. But yeah, we really did use a lot of our tools, and if we would not have had them, it would have cost us a lot more money and a lot more time just at the auto store. So yeah, that actually leads us into my last and final bonus lesson. My bonus lesson is that, like you've seen, our van isn't perfect and we have had some technical issues here and there, but that's the best part, is it doesn't have to be perfect for you to have fun, and it doesn't have to be finished. I think that it's actually a very, very good idea, before finishing your van completely with the shelving units and a kitchen and everything, to actually take a trip with your van before you go, so that you can get a feel of what you're going to use, what you're going to need. Along this trip, we have an ongoing list of how we want to build the interior and some things we want to change and move around. So yeah, just remember that before you start building your van the way you think you might use it. It would be a really great idea to take a little trip. It doesn't have to be a month long, but where you're living out of the van and you know, like, your day in, day out lifestyle, how you're using the van, what you're going to be using it for, before you make anything permanent. We have some temporary walls and a great bed because we know we're going to need that, but beyond that, we can really have some flexibility with what we're going to do in the future. So I can't wait to give you a van tour when it's all said and done and we have all the shelving in and the kitchen in permanently. But until then, see you next time.